So I have a little reading, um, and uh, we're going to be talking about the book, The Cloud of Unknowing. Um, in my copy of this book, right after that is a second little book called The Book of Privy Council or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I've actually uh, found that really, for me, a little more interesting. So I have a short reading from the first chapter, which will be sort of our prayerful introduction. Empty your mind of everything except a naked intent reaching out to God. Don't clothe this with thoughts of who God is or what he has created. Just be aware that he is as he is. Let him be himself. Please don't force God into any other shape. Don't let your maze-like mind probe him. Trust that God is God and let that faith be your foundation. By grounding this naked intent in faith, you reduce your consciousness and emotions to nothing but a simple recognition of a blind embracing of your own being. It's as if you're saying to God, I offer myself to you, Lord, without analyzing anything about you. I'm accepting you as you are, nothing added.
Thank you, Bruce. Great reading. I was going to give you some instructions in the meditation, but those were great instructions already. So maybe I'll say a few words, but let's meditate. So, at the beginning of this meditation, the main thing I would like you to do is just consider your day and whatever stories you've told yourself about that day leading up until this point. And just let all those stories go. Forget about the stories of the past, not just today, but the whole past. And consider that all knowledge of things are like that, just a story that you've told yourself. And forget that too. And just sit quietly in the present moment without adding anything to it, without telling yourself any story about it. In other words, like in the reading, have nothing but a naked sense of your own being. That's all.
So, Matthew, before you start talking, I think we have two new participants, Cynthia and Frankie. And if you could both just do a 30-second introduction and, what your interests are, a little bit about yourself, and Frankie, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name's Frankie. I'm on the East Coast of New York, and I'm a new friend of Clara's, and we were having a really long conversation the other day, and she mentioned Matt and said that you guys were meeting tonight, so I decided to tag along. And I have a history, non-duality, yoga, this, that, martial arts, whatever, all kinds of stuff.
Nice, nice.
Well,
Welcome.
well,
What martial arts do you train in?
Um, Taekwondo, Aikido, and long time ago, Okinawan, old Okinawan style, but that was when I was a kid.
Nice, nice. I did. Yeah, I trained in Aikido for like 25 years, so I'm
Oh, right on. Yeah,
yeah
yeah,
familiar with that world.
Yeah, me
Aikido's my
too.
longevity sport.
What's that?
Aikido's my longevity art.
Ah, yeah. Great.
welcome, Frankie. Cynthia,
Still can't hear you.
Cynthia, we can't hear you.
Connecting to audio.
I think she can't hear us either.
Can you hear us?
Cynthia, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Cynthia.
Let me see.
Try it now.
Do you hear us, Cynthia?
Can you hear me?
Now we
Oh,
do.
there we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was trying to switch over to my earphones and it did a weird thing. Anyway, yeah, I'm interested in non-duality and the experience of pure consciousness pretty much all my life and following that trail. And I've known that for a while. And I found out about this call and I appreciate being on it. So thank you.
Well, great. We're glad that you are here. Um, before we turn this over to Matthew, we asked people to look a little bit at the book, The Cloud of Unknowing. How many of you people, oh, Laura's been reading it. Cynthia's been reading it. How many people have read? Ah, everyone's got different copies.
Wow.
I read a little bit, Bruce, of it. I didn't read the whole thing.
No.
I did finish the whole thing. I love what Cynthia, did you write it that the Anonymous was the 14th century equivalent of Matthew and Joel?
and
Yes,
a, and a
that,
yes, and a great collection
yes,
of quotes as well. So
No, Liz and Raymond sent the quotes.
oh, well, they're a great collection of quotes. And
At times it felt like I was reading Shakespeare's greatest works again. Anybody else have that experience? It was in a similar speaking style, it felt.
yeah, the language is definitely archaic, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I was back in Catholic school. I went to parochial school for elementary,
some
so
people have a
Great. Well, I'm impressed so many people read it, much better than when I was teaching high school English, you know. And so um, so I think what I'd like to do is, if you guys have quotes you want to discuss, invite you to bring those to the table. And otherwise, I have some of the quotes that were sent in, and we can use those as a springboard to a deeper discussion. The primarily what I'd like to say about this book is, for me, also having a Catholic background, it's interesting to read the Christian mystics because in um, Catholicism and kind of in Western Christianity anyway, in the Eastern churches are a little different, but in Catholicism, the mystical traditions exist, but they're not really presented for lay people. So if you're just a practicing Catholic, nobody's going to advise you to read these books and or to look into what they're saying, or to attempt to do the practices they're suggesting. Um, and
It's true for
so
Judaism too.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think it's true in Buddhism also. Like in Tibetan Buddhism, lay people are introduced to a certain style of practice and certain teachings and things like that, and you know, the monks in the monastery are receiving different teachings and deeper teachings, so on. So this probably happens in all traditions to some degree, where the the entry level teachings and practices are given in a sort of exoteric way, and then the mystical teachings, the esoteric traditions, are reserved for dedicated practitioners. People who are really dedicating their lives to practice. Um, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think anyone can read these mystical teachings and benefit from both the teachings and the practices. As long as there is some um, guidance or some meta teaching that's going along with it to kind of to um, to illuminate what it is it's talking about. So that's what I think. That was my experience reading these books. And then the other part of that is seeing that what's being said in this book from the Christian tradition in the Middle Ages is so closely aligned with what's said in other mystical traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam. They're all saying the same thing. And so it's really startling to see what is said, and usually the sort of internal translation that's necessary is not very extreme. And in fact, a lot of these things, if you plucked a certain sentence or a paragraph out from the text and read it without telling somebody where it came from, they would be hard pressed to say which tradition that teaching came from. And so, that in and of itself is a blessing we have as modern people, because we're able to look at all of these different teachings and see that they're all um, more or less pointing in the same direction, saying the same thing, and in fact, suggesting similar practices as well. And so, that's what I would say. And let's just open the discussion on that to see. I would like to hear like what your experience was reading this from whatever background that you had. Yeah, Laura.
I first wanted to address in the version that I have, because I know there's lots of versions of this book. It seemed to say that there was active um, religious things, and there was a more of a contemplation thing,
Yeah.
and it was active grace as to where you were on that. It seemed like there was a progression. If you were actively a kind person, it might lead you with grace into like studying more and more. And
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, if I remember right, he sort of divides the Christian path into these two possibilities, the like an active path and a contemplative path.
Martha and Mary Magdalene, which to me also opened up the fact that of not being judgmental about wherever somebody is,
Yeah, or wherever you are. Yeah.
wherever I am. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that that was one of the things about this text that I remember. I think it's in this text. He talks about the kinds of experiences, ecstatic experiences that people can have in contemplative practice, and describes them as consolations. And it's a very kind of interesting way of framing the extraordinary types of experience that can happen in spiritual practice. A lot of times, in the West or in Buddhism and so on, everyone is looking at these extraordinary experiences like they are, one, the goal, or two, um, something to be gotten, like um, and here in this tradition, they're framing it as a consolation. In other words,
a gift of grace, maybe.
yeah, in the the thing that he says is that don't be jealous of people who have these experiences. It has nothing like the experience has nothing to do with spiritual maturity, and that some people may have these experiences and that other people may not have those experiences, um, and that shouldn't be the measure by which you um,
Your progress, maybe.
yeah, by which you look at your progress, you know. And I think that's, well, it's good to take that in mind, because however you think about this, the reality is that people have different experiences. And sometimes those experiences are similar, but everybody has a different life, a different path, a different mind, a different body, um, and they're going to have different experiences because of all that. So
So if you want to know my path, raised Roman Catholic, read a lot of stuff throughout my whole life, but only started meditation in 2011 because I was taking Tai Chi and Qigong, and it seemed like it might be a meditative thing. And so that's what brought me to the center and here.
were you surprised to find the mystical teachings in the Christian tradition? Was
Uh,
that new to you?
I guess it was because I read more about the Hindu stuff, you know,
Right. Yeah, that was my experience.
Rama, Krishna, Rama, give
Yeah, my
thanks for
experience was
everything you're doing.
discovering sort of more mystical teachings via the Eastern traditions, and then sort of rediscovering them in the Western traditions.
True. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Other comments, questions?
I was going to say that I had 12 years of Catholic school, and I was very, I guess because we had good teachers, I was aware of the mystics, but they were saints.
Right,
So
right.
it was not something that was encouraged to look into for yourself, really, as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
practice.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that makes sense. So,
Kristen, did you want to say something?
That's funny. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Back to your first thought and question there, Matt. Reading this mystical tradition and contemplative practice made me feel like, wow, I've been on the right path, because I could see the real correlation. And as I shared with Bruce when we've talked, I've really enjoyed, just kind of flipping it each time there's God or sin or and flipping it to what I've known with Buddhism. And so it's been a pleasure to feel that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do think that's one of the great gifts that we have as modern people, that we have the opportunity to be exposed to multiple traditions so that we can see that they are aligned. And that gives us insight into the fact that the language and the with which these truths are attempted to be expressed are not themselves the truth to which they point. Because you see, they're saying it kind of like this, and he's saying it kind of like that, and they're saying it sort of like this. And so it's kind of, you start to see all these different approaches, and that gives you a better idea of where they're pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Thank you. Yeah, I got a little bogged down. I did try to replace God with Great Spirit or universal energy, and then the original sin, and you have to repent, and so I kept, but I love the message of love, and I read two different or parts of two different translations, and one, the beginning said, "Less thinking, more loving," and that, and then I asked AI about how could you apply this book to modern life, and
Yeah.
actually Alexa said, it's like I asked what the cloud of forgetting, and what the answer was, it's sort of like you're clearing your room of clutter, but you're clearing your mind of clutter just to make space for that expansion and that, so. And when I first started reading it, we were dealing with I was in grips of a difficult tenant situation right next door to us and was very stressful, and said, how can I apply this, or, how can it help me? And something shifted, after a little while, but there was one quote about using love as a shield, like to protect yourself, and also as a blade. And I was thinking that in terms of dealing with difficult people, it's like, how do I um, keep myself strong, but also deal with this? So there was a little shift there in terms, and things got better. But I love the application to daily life, and how to, the contemplation. I thought, well, do I have to go up into my loft and do that, or can I just try to clear my mind? And AI said that they use, or she suggested the word peace, which I really like. I love the word love, but peace has also helped me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is good to have, yeah, listen to what resonates with you. For me, that I know I've mentioned this before, what you were describing as far as talking about how you can sort of use this kind of practice in daily life. I had this practice of approaching situations which were anxiety producing for me with kindness and curiosity.
mhm,
And that curiosity was kind of like curiosity to see how things would unfold rather than trying to predict or um, trying to make certain outcomes happen. Also, curiosity to understand the other people. If you go into a situation and you already feel like you're in conflict with somebody, or that you feel like conflict is inevitable, you will not be curious about that person. You will already be starting to put up sort of a defensive front, you know. So if you go in not worrying about what is going to happen, just being curious about, okay, let's see what will happen, and then just having a kind disposition toward whatever happens.
mhm.
For me, this was a transformative practice.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. Yes, that's,
it's very simple. It's
yeah.
like it's almost like give your put yourself into an almost childlike frame of mind. Just, oh, let's see what happens, and don't assume anything about the other person or how things will unfold and anything like that, and just try to be kind whatever happens.
Hmm.
It's a
In
great
the end, he
book
thanked
to
us
read
and
on
said
that.
we did a great job. So there was that. But I found my brain was like scanning for danger. Oh, I have to, figure this out beforehand. But I think I like that curiosity because it does, you know, you're more alive when you're curious than worried.
The other thing I'll just say because it came up here is, you know, there's this phrase about the cloud of forgetting and the cloud of unknowing. And maybe it's sort of hard to wrap your mind around that, but I would put it this way, and it's very simple. Forget everything that you think you know, everything about yourself, about the world, about who you are. Forget all of that. If you do that, that will put you in this cloud of unknowing.
Mm.
You know, you won't know. And it's in that place that, as the book suggests, that you encounter the divine.
So forget all those stories. That was helpful in the meditation because
Yeah,
that's just what
yeah,
yeah, thank
yeah.
you.
So whenever you sit down to practice, take a breath and let go of all the stories you have about your life, about your day, about your troubles, about your worries. They're all just stories, they're all just thoughts. And if you can let go of those, it will put you more and more in this, like how it was described, this naked awareness of one's own being and nothing more.
Mhm.
And that is what I would describe as the cloud of unknowing. You don't know what it is.
Mhm.
And the more you unknow, the more you don't know, the more wonderful, the more miraculous it becomes.
Thank you.
Laura.
When you mentioned curiosity in here, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was curious about my own intentions. Whatever bubbles up, to be curious or open to have that revealed to myself. So,
Yeah. And yeah, if you leave things open, you sort of your own intentions are they unfold in the moment in a way you don't even know what they are.
revealed to you.
They're revealed, yeah, through what happens. Yeah. Again, like contrast that with like pre-thinking a situation. Oh, if this person says that, this is what I'm going to do, or if this happens, this is what I'll do, or this is what I want to happen. I'm going to make this happen no matter, all these kinds of like trying to force onto reality your own view rather than just see, oh, what happens? What am I going to say? Or worrying like, I used to worry, will I say the right thing? You know, will this person be upset with me? And so on. And so rather than worrying, just see what you will say. Trust yourself. Trust if you put your again if you put yourself into a kind of basic disposition of kindness, then just trust that kindness, that innate kindness.
Hmm.
I would say a couple things. To me, you can't have a cloud of unknowing without having the cloud of forgetting, because we spend most of our lives to a certain point building an ego, and then we have to um, attempt to forget it. And so yeah, I mean, Ram Dass said you have to become somebody before you can become nobody. Um, I've said this here before. My main teacher from 4 decades ago and still today is Paramahansa Yogananda. So he's a Hindu master, and his mission was to present the mystic teachings of Jesus and the mystic Hindus as exactly the same, and the Buddha. So that was my introduction. And it was good because I was also raised Catholic, although I kind of left it behind about 10 years before I found Yogananda. But that's when the roof kind of opened up for me, and I'm very, very grateful to be introduced to the mystical teachings and the
the parallels between them all. So Yogananda would call, I think, the cloud of forgetting detachment, which is, percolates across all kinds of traditions. Um, and so I found the book very I got a cheater book, by the way. I got a distilled version. And I also, by the way, Jessica, I also got an AI. An AI is unreal in certain ways. I mean, in 5 seconds it can blend, six different traditions like well. Um, but I really enjoyed the book because it mirrors the teachings, certainly your teachings, Matthew. I know this book was important to you, but just um, what's what's helpful for me is to try to get beyond concepts and the thinking mind. And this book really punctuated that you can't think your way to absolute reality, but you could feel it. Um, and that feeling, we throw the name love or whatever on there, but that's kind of pointing in that direction. And the other thing I just want to share, there's lots of ways to get there, and for me, one of the ways of getting there each morning is through my music. Music is very mystical. It's one of those vehicles to experience, I think, to experience God. When you really lose yourself in music, it's very transcendent, and I'm very grateful for that element of our reality. Um, so I just want to put that out there. I think all of us can relate to music and how we can get lost in it. And I think there's something exceedingly directive towards the truth if we really deeply enter music, just like we enter meditation or these teachings that we of the masters that we try to follow. So anyway, I appreciate the introduction to the book, and thank you.
Yeah, wonderful comments. So I have a few things I'd like to follow up on that. So to go back to the beginning of your comments, you were saying how it's important to have this cloud of forgetting in order to have the cloud of unknowing, and in that also was implicit the idea that it's important to have a world to forget about. It's important to have an ego to transcend. In other words, you can't transcend birth and death if you don't have birth and death. You can't transcend the world if you don't have a world. And you see this theme in the various teachings over and over. For example, in Buddhism, they have the world is described as samsara, world of samsara, and you have all the different realms, from the God realms to the hell realms, animals and hungry ghosts and so on. And now the and what they say in Buddhism is to have a human birth is a great blessing, because that's the position in samsara where realization is that's most conducive to realization, or most conducive to this cloud of forgetting, you might say. You're neither up in it's right in the middle. You're not up in the God realm, you're not in the hell realm. As Alan Watts used to say, the gods are too happy, and the those in hell are suffering too much. So So I was just talking about this in a talk I gave last Sunday, that, there's this question, what we were talking about was injustice in the world, and how you could look at that as an outgrowth of delusion. And so people might look at that and say, well, okay, why delusion? And this is the answer, exactly what you pointed out. Because we have a world, because we see ourselves as separate beings, we have the opportunity to transcend that, to realize something larger. And you see this in the Christian tradition as well. In the, at the Easter Vigil, they chant this thing called this prayer called the Exultet. It's kind of like a summation of Christian teachings, but in there they talk about how they talk about original sin as being necessary, the necessary sin of Adam. And they say, not only that, they call it a happy fault. In other words, it's just like kind of what Buddhism is saying, that to have a human birth is a great blessing. They're saying that the original sin, to fall into delusion or so on, to have a human birth, is a happy fault, because it gives us the opportunity for redemption. And I would say, with regard to what you said about music, yeah, of course, because music is a beautiful part of the world. I mean, really, anything you look into can be a vehicle for realization, but music is a wonderful thing to look into. It's yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
David, are you making your own music? Or are you listening to music? And maybe it's
Oh, yeah.
comparable.
Yeah, no, I play. So it's the first thing I do every morning. I go up into my music room and play guitar and sing and just kind
Oh,
of welcome the day. And I'll tell you, as much as anything, it puts me in a zone that is just blissful. When I lose myself in it, I become the music. I just become it, and there's no separation between me and the music, and that's where the magic happens.
It's a great practice because the ego gets involved too, especially when you're learning something. There's self-judgment and all these kinds of
Yeah.
things. But when and all kind of skills are like this. You get in your own way, and in order to get better at a skill, at some point you have to stop getting in your own way, and that in and of itself is a spiritual teaching.
It's exactly it.
Yeah.
I like to say I don't play guitar, I pray guitar. Because that's really what I try to do. It's a very solo thing. I'm not in a band or anything. It's a very central part of my spiritual practice, and it has been for decades. So I'm just grateful that I'll tell you this though, I have to let go because I love the guitar. So like James Guitar wrote a song saying, if my guitar can't go to heaven, I don't want to go. And I'm a little bit like that. I'm a little bit
Yeah.
like that. And I got, there's something in there for me that I got to kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that, detach or I don't know. It's so beautiful. Like, do I really have to let go of that? Yeah, I
realize
think so.
realize that you're already in heaven, and then it won't matter whether you let go or not.
Hmm. Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, thank you. I'll, I'll, I'll reflect on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And David
Yeah.
has played for me once, and it is a awesome experience. Um, so Cynthia, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, and then Mona there.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to say, I appreciated, I'm another person raised as a Catholic, and it was a very complex cosmology, just like the Hindus. There were a lot of gods and saints and angels. And I appreciate that he makes it all very simple, though, because I also studied like Rosicrucian and Hermetic, Western Hermetic. It's all very complicated. It gets, like there's all these different dimensions and heavens and this, that. But really, he says none of that matters. And that's what I loved about it. He's saying, forget Jesus, forget Mary, forget the angels, forget anything they've ever done. Don't even think about that because it's not about that. And so that was kind of like it's free, the simplicity of it. I thought I really appreciated the freedom and simplicity of it. So it's so different from so many things that I've studied over time that get really complicated. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I
So it
think,
was.
yeah, if you have a mind that enjoys stories and complications, I do, at some point you're just overwhelmed with all these stories. You have to find a practice, a teaching, um, and a question, a simple question that cuts through everything. And I agree. I think this book does it well. This book is in the tradition of other Christian mystics, going back to, if you enjoyed this, I know I've mentioned this before, maybe 2 years ago when we started doing these talks, is the mystical theology by Dionysius the Areopagite. It's only like 8 pages. You can find it online, but the the premise of this mystical theology is, it's not a positive. In other words, rather than structuring a view or attributing attributes to the divine, creating a whole a picture of what the various worlds and realms and divinities and all of these things are, you go backwards. And instead, you can see this as like the cloud of forgetting. You remove, and by removing everything, you arrive at the divine. Because as this book points out again and again, God can't be anything, can't be a created thing. Or, as Meister Eckhart says, God is nothing. That's what he says. And so that's a teaching that cuts right through everything. It doesn't matter how, your understanding of the intricacies or the ornamental teachings or mythologies and so on and so forth. What matters is cutting through direct experience. I just want to bring up this quote because here is a quote that speaks directly to this. He says, "It doesn't matter how much profound wisdom we possess about created spiritual beings." And that, by the way, is any being. Our understanding cannot help us gain knowledge about any uncreated spiritual being who is God alone. In other words, God alone is uncreated. Everything else is a created being. All thoughts, all concepts, all organisms, all whatever you can think of, it's a created thing. God alone is an uncreated spiritual being. And here's the interesting part. He says, but the failure of our understanding can help us. In other words, if you read all of those complex teachings and you're struggling to understand them and you're struggling to understand how does this all fit together? How does it work? How am I going to navigate this? Where is my place in this view? How do I get from here? You're trying to figure everything out. All of this grasping for knowledge will never help us in the end. But our failure to understand can help us. When we reach the end of what we know, that is where we find God. And there's a certain sense in which we have to tire ourselves out or go to the end of all of our various, kind of karmic chains, if you will. Get to the end of our rope before we're really willing to let go. And I would say practice is a part of how we end up there, is applying ourselves to practice, trying to understand it, trying to do the practices and so on. And eventually you will let go more and more and more, not through success, but through failure. And when you fail completely, then you will be wide open to reality.
Mona.
Or surrendered.
Yes, you will surrender. You will give up.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment or question, I'm not sure which, on your comment, David, about the rhythm of your day starting with losing yourself in music. And Matt, you mentioning just being in that heaven, in that sense of being in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I to put the two together and just said, are you talking, Matt, about David losing himself?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you lose yourself completely, you will realize all your hopes are here already. You don't need to hold on to anything.
Yeah.
So
That seemed a key word, losing.
yeah. Yeah, we think like we always think when we're holding on to things, we're thinking about things, we have to hold on to them. But we're also holding on to ourselves. And if we think about, okay, we need to practice detachment, we're overwhelmed by the number of things we have to be detached from. This and that. For example, the guitar, right? Like, well, I really like that, and it's not just that, by the way. It's this other thing and this other thing. There's a whole slew of things that we're attached to. But the other end of that attachment is the self. And so one approach is to think, well, I don't need to let go of all of these various things. All I have to let go of is myself. Because when I let go of myself, all that the bondage that is created by that attachment is liberated, is freed. And guess what? You don't have to stop playing music either. And so
Yep.
so if you focus on letting go of yourself, this will be a faster way to detachment than trying to let go of whatever it is you are attached to in your life. Become nobody, or make yourself invisible to yourself. Nothing has to change. Your behavior doesn't have to change. Your activities don't have to change, and so forth.
Yeah, the
Just stop.
transcendence.
I said to somebody once, who was telling me about some problems in their life, and what I said to me, I said, stop taking your life so personally. you know, or my teacher used to say to me, stop feeling sorry for yourself. And it took a long time to realize just how sorry for myself I was feeling. Um, but that feeling sorry for yourself is attachment. Attachment.
So I'm going to quickly inject another quote before anyone says anything.
Oh, 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 oh.
When I know you were going to say something, Laura, but I'm taking facilitator's privilege here. When you succeed in forgetting all creatures and their works, and even your own life and all you've done, you will be left alone with God to experience a stark awareness of your own existence. But even this must go. Yes, you must lose the naked feeling of who you are. It must be destroyed if you wish to experience the perfection of contemplation or love. Laura.
I think that was exactly better words than what I was going to say, but a response to Matthew, losing yourself, the doer. You have to lose that
Yes, yes.
ownership of being the doer.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think
The,
that
the
quote
doer
said
is a
that.
good way of putting it, because when you think about, well, what is this self that we're thinking about? We just imagine there is this, you know, something that's what we are, and that we, identify with that um, person, so to speak, who is the doer. The doer of our actions, the thinker of our thoughts, the the decider of whether we go this way or that way, of what we do and say, and so on.
The paradox, by the way, the transcendence with music happens when I have no ego. There's no sense of Davidness. It's just the music, and that's where the magic happens. I think I don't know if I made that clear or not. But the
No, you
paradox
did.
is,
Yeah.
okay, the paradox is I'll stay with that theme. When I come out of that state, I'll look at my guitar and I'm absolutely incredibly grateful for my guitar. I mean, like massively, you know? And so the idea to me, when I lose myself, I come back and I have so much appreciation, so much gratitude
Mm.
for creation, for you, for my hands, for my
Yeah,
fingers,
yeah.
and that's the paradox for me. I don't know if you can speak to that. I'll tell you one
I
thing I'll say
mean,
though, with you asked for a comparison. Yogananda would talk to the two attributes of God. There's the Father, which is pure. nothingness, non, and there's the mother, which is manifest creation. So the Hindus will look at everything as God or nothing as God, both.
Yeah, yeah.
Can can you speak to
Ananda
that?
Mayama said, look for everything where, or no, look for nothing where nothing is, there is everything. Yeah, they're one and the same. I often say, the highest truth isn't complicated. Just don't leave anything out. If you don't leave anything out, one way or the other, it it all leads to a direct understanding or perception of oneness. And as cliche as that sounds, that's it. That's what all the teachings are pointing to, the profound unity of being. But yeah, what you were saying, David, is kind of about losing yourself and then experiencing profound gratitude and awe is exactly what you were saying earlier about, it's because we have this world that we have this opportunity to realize that, to feel that gratitude, to experience that wonder and that joy.
And wouldn't you say that would be love?
Yeah. Yeah. Or bliss, Um, yeah. In the Indian tradition, they say Brahman, the supreme reality, has these three qualities: being, consciousness, and bliss. And so that, yeah, whenever you speak of kind of that absolute love, or this is the bliss element. To that quote that you were reading, Bruce, it reminds me very much of Nisargadatta Maharaj, who said, his teaching was always focus on the I am thought. And if you look into this, what he's saying is kind of exactly what was said in the opening reading, which is focus on the naked awareness of your own being. That's it, nothing more. But what he said is you're not focusing on the I am thought because that's what you're looking for, or that sense of your being is what you're looking for. No, he says when you see that too is false, then self-realization will arise. So it's like, okay, forget everything and just look at this naked awareness of being. Focus all of your attention on that, not because that is the goal, but in order to dispel it, in order to see through it. And when you see that even the sense of your own being, or the sense of I am, is something which comes and goes, which is a transient phenomena that arises and dissipates, appears and disappears, you will recognize that even the sense of your own being is not real, is not foundational. It is impermanent. And in our own experience, we ignore it, but it's actually coming and going all the time. It's there when we think about it. It's gone when we don't think about it. It's there, when we're awake, and we think it's gone when we're asleep. Because we identify with our thoughts, and we think that's what's important. So, okay, so my thoughts are here when I'm awake, but when I'm asleep, they're gone. So what does that say about your thoughts? About your sense of your I am thought, if it comes and goes? It can't be what you are, is what the teachings are sort of getting at. Anything that comes and goes that's transient can't be foundational, can't be fundamental. So your thoughts about who you are not who you are. Your idea of what you are is not what you really are. You have to go beyond your ideas of what you are to discover what you really are. And the clue that's given over and over is look look for what is always present. Look for what doesn't come and go. Look for what isn't anything in particular, isn't any created thing. And in created things include thoughts, ideas, views, knowledge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And instead, look for the uncreated, or look for, as I've often said, look for nothing. Look for nothing.
Let's see if anyone who hasn't spoken yet has a question or thought.
I just want to say I really appreciated that last thing you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I haven't read this guitar. It's another thing. It's on top shelf of my reading list. But that was great.
What do you like about it, Mark?
How do I say this? The automaticity with which any idea or any conjecture or anything my mind lights upon, the speed at which it automatically sets into concrete or something, it becomes okay, I got it now. It's before I can even question it, it's already like I got it. So these kinds of like teachings are like, whatever you think, you don't got it. It's just a really good reminder that like a bell will ring now more readily. Anything that impedes that unconscious leaping to, grasping onto, is valuable to me.
Yeah, and I would say this is a practice that you can undertake. It is, as Dionysius the Areopagite said, it's the negative theology. It's a negative. Not only is it a theology, it's a methodology of, in other words, whenever you watch your mind, and whenever you see your mind grasping onto an idea or thinking what's going on, cut it off at the pass. Remind yourself that's just a thought. That's just an idea. You don't really know anything. Anything. It goes very deep. You don't even know, if what you are looking at is real or not real. You don't know. You don't know if you are alive or dead. You really don't know. Say, the more you don't know, or rather than proceed through knowing, I get it. Proceed by ungetting or unknowing. And this is what's amazing about the spiritual path, is it's such a unique endeavor. Everything else wants to give you something. Here, master this skill. Here, accumulate this, or understand this, or be able to do this, or remember this story, and so on. Put this and this together. The spiritual path is the only thing that ultimately, eventually asks you to give away more and more and more. In other words, to have less and less and less for yourself till you have nothing at all.
When I was in graduate school, we all had to read this book, well, for this class, called On Communication. It was by David Bohm, the famous physicist, and his travels in India. And in that book, and I remember thinking at the time, I need to plumb this more, but I didn't. He was saying that the mind, for all its wonders, it's what it's saying to us under the assumption that we're given is that what it's saying is true. That are like what the mind says, what the thoughts say, that's true by definition of the way the mind works. And so you have to be very, very selective about how you take things in, because your mind's going to automatically just add a level of truth to it that just isn't there. But it takes, so when I say automaticity, I mean, it's just like it takes a lot of counter teachings to break through that sort of, you know.
Yeah, and not just counter teachings, but it takes practice
Right,
of observing your own mind, of seeing, I see what I'm doing there,
right.
and that's all it is, and and when you first start to see this, it might be like you might think, well, yeah, but that's my whole life is thinking about things and
Right.
understanding them in that way and acting accordingly. And so you might say, well, if I were to give that up, what would I have left? And of
Or how
course,
would this work? Or yeah.
yeah, well, what I would say is don't worry about how it works. Again, you actually, in the end, you don't have. There's this kind
Right.
of
No,
a
I'm not saying we have to worry about it. I'm saying that's the like, well,
yeah,
how can I
yes.
function, like that kind of
Right,
thing.
but I am saying is if you find yourself worrying about how that's just another way of trying to grasp
Right.
at
Right.
things. So you have to cut through that. Don't worry about how it works. That will take care of itself. And in a certain sense, we hear, oh, I'm going to let go of all of these things. That's true, but also you don't have to let go of anything.
Mm.
So how will it work? It'll work the same way it is now. It's just that everything will be transparent. The truth, whatever, you can imagine, look, whatever the truth is, if it is really the truth, it's already the case. Nothing is gonna change other than you will see through all uh, the things that are not the truth, and they can still be there and still function and do what they need to do and so on. Um,
So, um, so that question, Matthew, that you say, how do you know you're not dead? I remember you asked me that when we first met, and that question cuts through the thing because there's no answer to that. There's no way to know that we're not dead or that this is not we're not dreaming ourselves in this world that we appear to be.
so
So that question, I think,
what does that tell you about the experience that we're
that
having?
I have no idea what's going on. That's the only thing that it tells me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I have no answer. I don't know. How do I know I'm not dead? That there's no way to.
You don't. Life and death are only ideas. This is the thing. So what it does, just like you said, where you find yourself is in a cloud of unknowing. If you don't even know that you're alive, what do you know? You know?
Yeah.
And so that right there, that feeling of unknowing, not just detachment, but an inability to grasp onto anything. That's the cloud of unknowing in which to lead a contemplative life.
It seems so real, don't know? That the question is something we don't even ask ourselves. Like, how do I know I'm not dead?
Right. I know. I know.
It's kind of shocking. The question is kind of
It's
shocking.
it's unbelievable. I have to tell you, when I had this experience of awakening, I thought to myself, how could I have missed this? How could I have not seen this? And it's kind of like that. Like, yeah, why don't we ask ourselves that question? Why do we just assume we know what's going on? It's so conditioned into our way of thinking. Like I said, when people think of what human beings don't know, we often think of the outer edges, right? Like, okay, we know this, but beyond that horizon of knowledge, we don't know anything. But what the mystical teachings are saying, you don't even know the things that are in the horizon. That in the horizon and outside the horizon is the same unknowing.
But I
It's
guess
just that out there it seems like darkness, and in here it seems like all kinds of things are going on.
because it seems to be like it's a closed system, kind of like what Einstein would say, like you cannot, I don't know my words, I have no idea, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but something like you can get out from a system with kind of the structure, you cannot get out from the structure with the same thinking, the same way of
That's right.
thinking, the same. So
Yeah.
this, whatever this is, dream, not dream, dead, not dead, I have no idea, but it's self-explanatory all the time. Is self-explaining itself. It's like a closed. I always think of it like a closed structure that is always proving itself to be true, or
Yeah.
at least our
I
minds
think
do
that's
that.
kind of like what Mark was saying. The way our minds actually work is we assume that the things that we think are true. We assume when we see whatever it is we see, we assume that it's there. But, the interesting thing is we assume that in a dream too. But sometimes when we wake up from the dream, we don't say, where did that world go? You know, or if we wake up within the dream, we realize, oh, this seems very real, but actually I know it's just a dream.
I want to say one more thing about what we talked about before, the way the mind works. One way I think of it, and it came up for me because we've been talking about music. Music and sound is like very high on my list of things I love. And I think that we have a kind of like utility consciousness. It's like we think about things in a very sort of practical way. And there's a locked inness that we can get to that. And that's why I think people say, like we need to attach to our heart or come from our heart or find that other place. That's not this way of thinking. And when I listen to music, that happens same way as David was saying. And uh, to me, that's a really interesting thing to like what happened. Like it's almost like what happened to the dreams. Like what happened to that very mundane, way of looking. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, like color just came into what was black and white a moment ago. So um, that's something we haven't talked about, but I just want to throw that in. And the reason I want to throw it in, just in case anyone's interested, I just ran across recently, like less than a week ago. Um, there's a Harvard choir called the Harvard Opportunes. They're an a cappella choir, and I listened to a lot of their stuff. And actually, I only liked this one piece they did. Someone did an arrangement of the tune Blackbird, and it's magnificent. It's so good that I literally cry listening to it. So if at any point before this is done, if you guys want to hear it, um, I think it'd be great to listen to. Just want to say.
Send it to us, Mark, or send it to
Yeah, yeah, send it
I'll
to us.
put a link in the chat.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, um, one thing that you can do is when you have that experience of losing yourself in an activity, in listening, or in a moment, of beauty and so on. And then when that moment passes, when the song is over and your normal mundane experience returns, wherever, pay attention. What changes? What happened? What went away when you went into that? When you forgot yourself? What left? And when your sense of self came back, what returned? If you pay attention to that, it will help you clarify what you are and what you aren't. Because even though your sense of self may have gone for a moment, what your true nature is always present. It's always there. It's never absent. And so whatever left and returned, it can't be your true nature. This is like deep sleep. Many of you have heard me talk about deep sleep. And Ramana Maharshi used to say all the time, do you deny that you exist in deep sleep? And this is the point that he's making.
Well, maybe this is a place to end, and I'll say a blessing. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Um, does anyone have a final word of wisdom for us?
Well, I'll say one thing if I can. Um, so stick with the Yogananda thing, and then I'm sticking with the sleep awake thing. So Yogananda would say that spirit is so powerful that God has spirit enter through our breath. And it's so powerful that it tricks us into thinking that we're a body. Spirit is so powerful that it tricks us into thinking what we are, and it's not what we are.
Good
So
teaching.
I love that. I just, I breathe in and I can feel spiritual energy, and it wakes me up.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. It's trickery, tricks me all the time. I like what Mark said too. It's like right away it tricks me, and I need these teachings to kind of try to stay awake.
Or music.
A blessing to be left with all of us. May we see through God's trick in each breath. May we open to the music of God's song and be calmed and cured by it. May we reach through the noisy ego and our thoughts to find the silence of unknowing and rest in that cloud of pure being. And whenever we drift from that, may we be curious about what drew us away and curious about what draws us back. And may we love, and may we be in peace, and may we be kind.